Season 4 of the Humans and AI podcast is finally here. This time we're doing things a bit different. We're still chatting with incredible founders and leaders shaping AI, HPC and GPU infrastructure, but with a sharper focus on today. The roles they're in, the challenges they're facing, what's actually working and what's not. It's real, it's current, it's straight from the people building the AI ecosystem. Can't wait for you guys to hear it. Well, great to have you. Nice to see you, Nicole. Nice to see you, Sandeep.
Thanks, Nick.
Obviously, for the benefit of everybody else, you're the CEO of Redsand, and you're obviously the COO, co-founders.
Yes.
Obviously, it'd be good to get a bit of an intro, a little bit about the business. I was just saying, 13 years now.
Yep.
But obviously different guises. So just a high-level overview, really, of you, your role, and a bit about the business. If that's okay.
Sure. Well, so Redsand, yes, the brand has been around for 13 years. Originally, I spent probably sort of 9 to 10 of those years focused predominantly on financial technology, fintech. So, very accustomed to innovation waves. That chapter, let's call it that, was amazing. But actually it was a segue for me to work into the DeFi world. The DeFi world took me into digital infrastructure in the form of Bitcoin mining. We'll get into that. But when, the compute opportunity came around, it was an obvious, there was goodwill and it was an opportunity for us to, I guess, come, and reinvigorate the business under the brand. So Nick, thank you for having us. It's great to be here. Beautiful day outside, for London. So my background, predominantly technology background, product sales, marketing, business development. And then, as I mentioned, moved very much into an industry segment, which was a brand new segment, certainly for London, where fintech was on a rise and a boom. And I loved the innovative side. I loved the edginess of fintech and the newness of, really looking at new ways, new business models, disruption of, essentially the mainstay in the incumbency of financial institutions. And luckily that led me, because I began to look at, really forming and shaping innovation in the form of ventures on behalf of institutions in what we would typically call a venture studio. I then found myself crossing onto the other side of the table and look at basically wearing an investment hat.
Yeah.
So good rounded experience in terms of understanding how to build businesses, how to finance businesses. And then obviously the blue chip background helps with, making sure things are scalable and adult, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, huge, broad experience over those years, obviously starting out in sales and then moving to build this business. And then obviously, Sandeep, you've come in and you're the COO.
Yeah.
But you have a huge background, a varied background actually, which probably gives yourself quite a good advantage into running a business.
Yeah.
So, Joe, just talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Nick. It's like Nicole said, it's a great day to be here. And we are very happy to spend some time with you and go through this. So what I would say is, I started out as a mechanical engineer. It's really a very strange combination of mechanical engineering and finance, I would say. But I was always interested in finance. So I moved to the UK maybe about 2005, spent a few years here. I worked with an investment bank here called Rothschild, which people are aware for a lot of other reasons, I would say. But then I went back to India and I started a number of ventures in clean tech and manufacturing, energy space. And through the last, I would say 15 years up to COVID, I was in India. I was running multiple businesses at the same time. During COVID, I thought I needed a break. I moved to the UK. So that's how I met Nicole here. And we've started working since then. And now I guess it's the 4th or 5th year. At Redsand.
Fourth
year. Yes.
Maybe
feels more like 5 now. So so that gives me a lot of perspective in terms of operations, I would say. It's also mostly finance. So my background is slightly varied from Nicole's because I come from the investment banking side. So I would say that as a team, we have the experience going from early stage to late stage across both of our experiences. Yeah, so that should be helpful. And setting up new ventures or running operations is something that comes very naturally. So I think it's a nice role to be in. say.
So both very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Obviously, we now got Redsand as it is today. We have to just get a bit of an overview of what the actual vision and the strategy is for the business, if that's right.
Yeah, it's really super simple. So Redsand is what it started out to be 4 years ago, which seems like an eternity in this industry. But we came out the blocks because of the work Sandeep and I, we kind of dovetailed. Our first kind of meeting point together was working in the kind of operations and the financing of some large-scale Bitcoin mining activity in Europe. So our original and today our thinking is, decentralized operations are the way forward, as you can imagine. And so today we have taken that, we've had fits and starts in terms of, what the business model should be, but essentially Redsand provides AI as infrastructure as a service, fully decentralized, which in, I guess current terminology lends us to, coin a phrase, edge computing requirements for AI, inference requirements for AI, sovereign, localized, hyperlocal stacks, depending on the enterprise use cases. So that's what we do. So we run the full service for a customer, and that means we finance as well. So obviously that's a very important part of what we do. And we do things maybe slightly differently in that we look at the customer use case first and work down towards the infrastructure rather than building the infrastructure and then going to find the customer. So maybe, a very, not unique certainly, but certainly, we're in a small kind of segment of the market to date, which is taken quite a long time to get to, right? We also self-funded.
That's very good going.
Yeah, self-funded. Probably, I'd be honest, we didn't intend to be self-funded. But because, and we'll talk about, adoption rates, because we were needing to find use cases out the blocks, we couldn't really get investors' minds around the fact that, we were going to build decentralized, hyperlocal, fragmented but scalable infrastructure, and we were going to find the customers first. So many, VCs don't understand digital infrastructure. The larger infrastructure, players, funders only want to do big, chunky, massive, centralized build capability that way. So we've self-funded, but here we are. Yeah,
fantastic. And so obviously the industry itself is going mad. We were talking about that offline beforehand, and we're seeing all this crazy amounts of investment with some of the other organizations in the space, and it is highly competitive. I mean, how do you navigate the competition of the market and create your little, not little, but your segment then? Because at the moment, you do see some of the larger sort of, neoclouds or AI infrastructure businesses. I often find that they're going after the same deals. Yeah. So how are you actually sort of targeting your customer base?
So I guess the question is, who do we compete with? And the honest answer is I don't really know. Yeah. Because we really, and we'll come to some of our learnings, but initially we thought, do we compare ourselves against, other cloud providers, other data center infrastructure players? And actually that wasn't very helpful because where we are today is the way in which we've carved out our niche is because we have very broad experience in our team. We understand everything from, kind of strategic transformation agendas, innovation agendas, right through to the hardware. So we found our niche in basically walking into the corridors of enterprise customers, either ourselves or through partnerships, and we're very partner-centric, and actually looking at roadmaps with customers, being able to actually plot where are they today and where do they need to go tomorrow? Have they been on some level of an automation journey, yes or no? And really, why think about infrastructure? Okay, so we at the base of basically a solution pyramid, but that base is a mission critical base. Yeah. So that's how we've carved out our niche. It's not easy for people who understand just the kind of infrastructure because they've never really had to go and position themselves in a boardroom of a bank, perhaps. But that's how we've done it. And that's why it's taken us a good couple of years to kind of get the model really right. Now, I'm sure there'll be other players that think like that. but there's a big enough market for everyone. And to your point around it is a crazy market, but I think we've learned very quickly not to believe every single headline.
That is true.
Yeah.
I think everyone has a little bit of cynicism these days when they see it. But I mean, obviously, and speaking about your team, so I was looking at your team previously before we met, and the people you've got involved in the business are extremely senior, extremely experienced individuals. That can't be said for lots of other companies out there. I think you don't bother with your lower level people. You've got experience. You've got people that have actually built businesses. You've got people that actually built massive sales org. So I suppose when you're going in front of a customer, you're giving a lot of confidence in terms of your knowledge and your expertise.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'll say, and this is rich coming from someone who's in the industry, but I've been in other industries, so hopefully I've got license to say this. Infrastructure is a commodity. And I think the industry's, the wider headlines and the excitement is players and therefore funders have forgotten that, to a large degree. But we will see that taper off. We will see the big names that have dominated the market, they'll reach their peak, and I would say that's coming sooner rather than later. And the commoditization of the market is going to happen. It's happened every single cycle. So we didn't want to bet on technology and be pure technologists because we're just not, right? We picked our team to be able to sit in front of customers and be able to tease out where they really are going. Are they equipped to make decisions in AI? Where are those use cases? Where are the budgets? Because AI infrastructure takes, could eat up 60, sometimes 70% of a budget allocation, and you can't have junior people doing that, right? So so that's been our approach.
And speaking and thinking of from a numbers perspective, so obviously AI, it's huge. There's a lot of investment in it. What would you say is the biggest sort of risk and concern for AI now? I mean, some people say it's maybe the ability to get power and the cost of power. Have you got any thoughts around that yourself?
I think getting power and space and, of course, you always have issues with planning and operations. But I would say the real challenge right now for the industry, which people are not foreseeing or maybe they are foreseeing, is that who is the customer? Another data center or a tech company is not your customer. So you see all these gigantic deals happening where one cloud is signing up another cloud as your customer. Ultimately, this has to be consumed by somebody else at the end of the food chain, I would say. And at the end of the food chain, you have these enterprises that Nicole talked about, and we are seeing, say, a bank or an insurance company or a manufacturing company who's taking this up. They have not really adopted the solution as fast as people had expected. So if you see the curve, they're not yet there at the top. So that's taking some time, and the budgets are really with them. The budgets are ultimately that's the pool that everybody has to dip into. So whether you're a large hyperscaler or you're a smaller cloud, all of them are looking towards the enterprise to spend this money. But the enterprise are not really opening up their purse strings. And this is not because they don't have the budgets. It's just they don't know how to get into this market. And they don't really trust AI with the data that they have. So that's the other use case that we are seeing, that it's all nice to say that, you have this big infrastructure coming up, but who's going to consume it? In the previous days, you would have seen in the data centers, right? People come in, they sign up for 15-year leases and they do that. And now people don't want to sign up more than 3 years also. Getting them to 3 years is a big issue. So how do you fund them? There are a lot of challenges around that. Of course, the big players are not finding this an issue because they have huge amounts of equity or debt pools that they can go up to. But then, sooner or later, the music will stop. So then you will see this massive amount of pipelines. I mean, you're building this capacity like crazy, and we don't know where this is going to be absorbed. I would say that's the biggest challenge. So.
Yeah, you half answered my next question in that as well. I mean, but in terms of the end user itself, it's the confidence in AI and the data you were saying there. But is it also maybe an adoption and education piece as well? Because you've got a lot of people in the AI space that just don't necessarily know how to use it and truly realize the benefit of the potential, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. So most people, when you see, right, when they say AI right now, they think ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So I just log on to ChatGPT and I send a message. It gives me some feedback. That's all well and nice when we, as a consumer, we don't look at the data privacy so much. But then when you get into an enterprise, right, they have to think whether they can put this data there because of compliance issues, they have competition issues, they have business operations issues also. So do they trust the model to do that? They're still going around and trying to figure that out. Many enterprises right now, they have adopted AI, but they have done it for very low tech use cases, I would say. So they haven't reached the scale that the developer market right now is trying to push. So it's not very high tech. I'll give you an example because we've been working with some customers where the use cases are pretty simple. They're using it for chatbots, document scanning, I would say even voice bots. So they're so basic that, in the developer market, these solutions were available 3 or 4 years ago when ChatGPT was launched. They're just adopting it right now, and we are talking about some of the biggest banks in the Middle East at least. So we know where they are, and these are the companies who are spending these budgets. So if you go to an AI native startup right now who's raised a bunch of equity from a lot of VCs, they have a small kitty which most of it goes into computer. But then what happens after that? So adoption is there, but adoption is where the people who have adopted don't have the budgets. People who haven't adopted have budgets. So this is the predicament in the market, I would say.
So some of the challenges. So, and then learning more about, obviously, with Redsand. So you guys have got locations where? So your primary areas that you're focusing at the moment?
Oh, jurisdictions. Yeah,
jurisdiction.
I mean, we're seeing very big growth in the Middle East, and we had that discussion for all kinds of reasons, mainly ambition.
Yeah.
And then we took a bet, when we were raising money, a lot of or attempting to raise our first rounds, we were like, oh, the world is so polarized. If we take money from one part of the world, is that going to preclude us from operating in another part of the world? So we just took a bet and said, let's find customers and let's find like a growth market and the money will come. We don't, as I said, we haven't leaned on external capital, but the growth markets remain. So we're going to be focusing predominantly on the Middle East and the East, right? India. Europe has been slower than we would have liked to see, but that's not, we're here. And so we can serve that market. And, if we do, maybe 6 months down the line, we'll look at the US, but we'll probably look at it through an indirect relationship. We'll work through partners for that. And then in terms of where are we, wherever the customer is.
Yes.
I mean, we talk hyper-local. So our use cases are generally speaking on-prem. If we're talking an enterprise stroke agentic use case. If we're talking partnership, and our partners come in various forms. Either, we've got kind of system integrator type, profiles. We've got more infrastructure partners, tower companies, so we can help them leverage and elevate their stack. They could be anywhere. So we're not, we'll go anywhere really. It's just where we can get momentum and be economically viable, within 3 months is really our.
And how do you get those partnerships working? Because I think, we've all seen it where you sign a master agreement with a partner. That's actually just the start. Is getting that relationship working. How have you found sort of navigating those partnerships?
So, partnerships in my blood. So, thankfully, I kind of
that's your wheelhouse.
Fall back on that. It's very simple. You have to have the right incentives, and be ethically aligned, have the right incentives, and then things fall into place. So, because we're super agile, so we finance. And we don't have to build anything until we have an invoice coming our way. We can go through the design and the consultation and road mapping, etc. But we don't ship a thing, until we have, we essentially an accepted quotation and an invoice. So we are let's put it this way, we can incentivize our partnerships. We've got enough background in financing to work out ways in which everyone wins. The customer feels like they're getting a good deal. The partner can add the stack to their service line as a solution and earn as a reseller potentially. So we have a really good reseller model. And of course, because we don't have to rely on building a centralized infrastructure, we don't have to worry about power, we don't have to worry about all those other things. We are, we can really rationalize our cost, and that's how we've succeeded.
Can remain really competitive there.
And just to add to that, right? When we sign a partnership agreement, like you said, I mean, after 3 months, we don't know where it goes. But then what we do is we try to go along and meet customers and customize this solution. So it's not that we give one part of the stack and then they have to figure out the rest of the stack. So we try to understand what are the needs. And there's a lot of education piece also in this with the partners. Even the partners are trying to find their feet in this market. So where do they come in? What do they bring in? Because even the customers are asking a lot of questions, and they have to figure that out. So I think initially when we are around, we actually bring that expertise to the table. And like we said early on, our team has got enterprise selling is like in our DNA, I would say. So going with that, right, we know what enterprises want.
Yeah.
So we literally handhold partners and go through this journey. So that I think is a big advantage compared to just signing an agreement, I would say.
I guess the demand versus supply side, we really over-indexed on the supply side in this world, right? But having, essentially, we kind of crossed that chasm. And that's super helpful. So partners that really are like, strategically maybe trusted to direct an AI strategy for a customer have never had to consider what the infrastructure is. But AI is a completely different game, right? If you get that infrastructure wrong, you risk the collapse not only of your business, but potentially your customer's estate, their reputation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, really beneficial to be able to be in that intersection where we know, first of all, how we can make the economics work, how we can satisfy the customer requirements around compliance, privacy, and sovereignty, but also economically, how we can ensure that everyone wins. And, Nick, it's not just about the economics from the first, check a customer pays, but as you well know from all the interviews you've done, there's this like iceberg effect, right? Where you can see this shiny white, iceberg sticking out somewhere in the Arctic, right? Or Antarctic. And that's like, okay, I can budget for that. But full ROI, still a bit murky. But full TCO is a completely underneath subterranean dark art. And that is because, and we can get to it, as the compute moves higher in the adoption curve, which means it becomes embedded in every single application we potentially use in the future, no one has really figured out fully, certainly on our customer side, what that means economically for them. And that's what we're trying to help with, because it's a big shock when you start running the numbers. The economics don't work like cloud for AI, right? Or high performance computing cloud, that is. So, that's a massive thing that we're trying to educate customers with, is how to plan economically for estates, alongside all the issues they have just getting out the blocks in terms of compliance and, extracting ROI from the money invested.
That's an interesting point, because I think, at the moment you hear lots of companies shouting about what they offer. It could be sovereignty, it could be about sustainable and green energy. All of the things are brilliant and really important, but they're talking about it so much it almost feels like a bit of a Me Too movement. Speaking of the customer, what are the primary things that they're usually looking for when you're speaking to an enterprise and talking about AI? So obviously cost and understanding that full cost allocation and that education piece is huge. But, and obviously sovereignty, depending on the client, is going to be really important. And I'm sure they've got their own sort of sustainability goals. What do you find is what's the business conversation you tend to have with these clients?
Well, we started our journey thinking, sustainability has to be, we are it, right?
Yeah.
We're like, don't need a lot of energy. We can be, super efficient in terms of both input and output, in terms of emissions. That hardly ever comes into the conversation.
Really?
Hardly ever comes into the conversation. The main thing, no surprise, is, oh my God, how do I get started? If I get this wrong, the company's down the tubes potentially. So it's this privacy sovereignty debate. Now, what sovereignty is like ask 1,000 people, you get 1,000 different answers. So we can solve that by being hyper-local and just saying, well, let's start really basically. Let's bring the compute to you. Wherever your demand or your user is, we'll serve that last mile compute requirement. So that's probably the number one like pain point we are solving right now. Then as the use cases start maturing, they begin to realize, okay, not the fact that we are, distributed by nature, but the fact that the use cases need to serve users that may not all be in one city or one location. This is going to be a performance issue. So the next thing I would say is latency. Right?
Yeah.
And, this is where
and scalability is also linked to latency, I would say.
Yeah.
How do you scale from, say, you've built this infrastructure now for 1,000 users. Tomorrow your product has become a super hit and you need to serve 1 million customers. So how do you actually scale quickly and sustainably also? So that's the other angle that will come in phase 2, I would say. Phase 1 is what, like Nicole mentioned, you would add sovereignty and then you would add performance.
And then close on that is really performance is linked to the cost. Okay. So that trajectory is completely, there's a correlation there. So I think those are the things we see, but customers that are in early trials or, theoretically just, early in their journey will only really be thinking about privacy right now. Okay. And getting projects through, right? How is the data treated? Where are they located? We're going way beyond GDPR now. Where are they located? Are they multinational? Where should they run the pilots? Are those pilots going to be contained pilots, or are they going to be with real live customers? Where are those real live customers? That's really where I think everyone will face that in the beginning. That's just a problem. We and the regulation, right? The regulation is like, so these are the fumbly things that I think most take up most time in
of course
conversations.
the cost will come in, because what's happening with cost is that people do want to understand what am I paying for, and this is the one thing that we have found lacking in the entire market also. Because when you go to a cloud and you try to, or any of these traditional models, right? They talk about kilowatt, megawatt. That used to be the data center language early on. Then the neo clouds came in and they made it GPU per hour. What GPU, how many GPUs do you want, and things like that. But if you ask a customer or the enterprise customer that we are speaking to, they don't really understand this. They just want to understand what's my monthly bill, or if I'm doing this use case, okay, I'm running it for 1,000 users. Can you predict what is my monthly bill? Because budgets get set at least 6 months, 1 year ahead of time. It's not that this month they pay 10,000 and next month they want to pay 100,000. Nobody's happy with this kind of a system. But unfortunately, with AI, people are not able to predict that. So we are trying to bring the fixed cost model to the market again. So that's the other, I would say, important differentiation that we have.
I think, a fixed cost model I think would be amazing, because obviously everyone got burnt a little bit from the hyperscalers. Yes. You get all these free credits and then all of a sudden you're in real trouble. So, so speaking of cost, you're then thinking, obviously you've got sovereignty, your edge, so you can go straight to where they are. Mm-hmm. What are the other sort of additional USPs that you guys might have? Is there anything else that you sort of try to put yourself above, maybe not necessarily competition, but make yourself more appealing? Yeah,
so obviously, as you said, privacy first, performance and the economics. I think the other thing is no customer is the same. Yeah. So it's not a one size fits all. So the way in which we've been able to develop our model is to say we'll provide a fixed cost per unique configuration or use case, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't lock our customers in beyond very reasonable terms. We allow scalability within, the terms of our contracts. So long as they commit to the contract, we can go up and scale out. But we do everything tailor-made per use case, right? So I think that's, something we naturally wanted to do anyway. So the tailor-made bespoke treatment, again, is a big thing. And then obviously just hand-holding them. It's a big chunk of really spending time strategically with customers. Last thing I'll say is our go-to-market is is a blend. We're very partner friendly, partner centric, and we can incentivize most of our partners to work along. Obviously we incentivize our partners, but we're very agile, is what I say, in terms of entrepreneurial brains. How can we make this work? We've got a standard way of engagement, but it's amazing how you can adapt that very easily. So I think that's a great benefit for us. So we can get to speak to a lot more people, a lot more end users through partnerships, and we're delighted with that. I mean, that's just the only way to go.
Fantastic. And in terms of the future, what does that sort of look like? Because I appreciate, it's been a couple of years. You've done amazing things being self-funded, so you're really in control of your own destiny in that sense. What's the sort of plan over the next sort of 12, 18 months?
Yeah. So I would say maybe I can talk about the market, I guess. So the market that now we have identified and is essentially the SaaS market, which is moving to an agentic model. So you've seen it's probably about $300 to $400 billion spent that they do on the cloud historically. So now with AI coming forward, 80 to 90% of these companies have already announced that they're moving to agentic models. I would say even 15 to 20% of their current revenues are from agents, including Salesforce and all the big companies. So that gives us close to about 30 to 60 billion. That's the range of the market that we are targeting. So I would say that's the market number where we are trying to play around. And the regions are, like Nicole mentioned, we are actively working in the Middle East, going towards Asia and maybe into the US very soon. Europe is always there. So that's on the high level on the market side.
And then strategically, I mean, our aim is, inference is our game. So that's never going to change. We'd look to be more, I think, our go-to-market. We need to get smarter on how we go to market in terms of the range of partners, I said. So right now, I'd say, thick and fast, we're very skewed towards this kind of agentic transition. But there are all kinds of other infra partners we're looking at. So, we've done some very interesting early work in property and other kind of hard asset world, so logistics, manufacturing, and we, even, for example, like in discussions potentially with a construction company behind a new airport. So how can we adapt the model for like an IoT use case? So AI IoT is a space I think we can play really because of the agility. And, I think, again, just growing smartly, scaling, making sure that we retain good profit margin and we incentivize, those that we work with.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, before we finish up, I always like to ask, basically, we have a lot of founders, we have a lot of people that are thinking about starting a business. You guys are obviously in the thick of it. You've been doing it, both very entrepreneurial. What sort of advice would you give to maybe a founder of a company, a tech business, or somebody that's looking to start something? What sort of guidance would you give? Because you both got really good experience. Yeah. Obviously putting together works. Well,
first of all, every young business has got to look bigger and smarter than potentially they really are. And, so my advice is, there's nothing more important than the talent in your team. And by that, I mean, you need a breadth of talent. So, to be competitive in this market with so much variation and so many moving parts, I would say, choose mature, and I say that in the best possible, but people who really understand businesses at scale. Be ready to operationalize, right? Don't just hire in your own, image, right? So if you're technical, don't just hire. So that's the key thing is you've got to have breadth, operational breadth and seniority and however you define that within your team. And talent is everything. Hire or at least bring on people that are willing to kind of ride the early journey with you, maybe not on full time, but in any way they can. Sell the vision. I think you can talk to the money.
And just link to that, I think before I move to the money, I would say like this obviously is missing in the market. I have seen this with a lot of startups. Founders, they have their own echo chambers, like Nicole said. So it's the lack of professionalism is going to kill a lot of these startups, especially when you go to real life customers, right? we have been on the receiving end when we speak to a lot of companies, DevOps teams, tech teams. They don't really come across very professional, and it's very difficult to get them to, even if I'm ready to write a check, I can't get them to come to the table yet. So it's sometimes it's seriously like, I don't know, maybe they have raised a lot of VC capital and they have a lot of pressure. That's the other point. When you're raising capital, try to be as you should start thinking about it first before raising any capital, because once the more money comes in, the pressure that comes with that is quite different. So choose your investors very wisely, and if you don't need it, don't raise. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it's, with the investor hat on, for a long time of looking at the kind of, I guess, the software centric AI use cases, more generative AI use cases, we were seeing, peers amongst us, VCs, mainly, less so in Europe, but, still you saw it, where VCs were writing checks for, Series A, check 5-10 million, depending where you are in the world. 60% of that was going to compute, right?
Yep.
Like, that's very dangerous, right? Because that's CapEx, that's gone, that's depreciating, that's like, sits on your balance sheet, but how are you going to run the company? So I think, whoever you get into bed with financially, incredibly important to think through, get advice, get second opinions.
So get the right money, not just
Yes.
any money.
Yeah.
Yes. Bring in some really good talent.
Yeah.
And then you make a valid point, actually. I know a lot of startups, and it's like the Wild West sometimes in there. It is very immature.
Yeah.
They're running rather than looking at the here and now, and just literally looking at the internal processes, the governance, the structuring of the company.
It is quite tough to be a startup founder, because you have to juggle so many balls.
Oh, there's so much.
That's why you have to bring in the right team, I would say. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, this has been brilliant. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next 12, 18 months. I'll probably have to invite you back just to see what's going on.
That would be
Certainly see what happens in the Middle East as well. But thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you
Nick.
so much,
Thank
Nick.
you.
It's very nice to be here. Yeah.
Indeed. And that's it for this week's episode of Humans in AI. A huge thanks to my guests for sharing their insights, and to you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to hit follow, share it with someone in your network, and let me know what you think.